Hello everyone, it's Moonkin FTW, and welcome back to yet another episode of the RCT3 Coaster Challenge. In this episode, we're going to make an old school hypercoaster. That's right, we're tackling the hypercoaster, and if you know these roller coasters from real life, you know that they're based off the old school hypercoasters from Aerodynamics, and they were, Aero was the first one to make a hypercoaster, which of course was Magnum XL 200 in Cedar Point, which was the first, a full circuit roller coaster, I think it's called, which had a drop of at least 200 feet. It's also kind of what started the coaster wars, which is where parks and manufacturers started building higher and higher roller coasters. You got for Magnum XL, and of course you got Goliath and Titan at Six Flags. Then you of course got Millennium Force, which is the first Giga coaster. Oh my god! And then you got the Top Thrill Dragster, which was a strata coaster, and just a whole bunch of stuff more. So it's really cool, the Coaster Wars, which kind of ended when Maverick was released, and people started focusing more on crazy fast transitions and really cool features like Stangle dives and hardline rolls and that. But for now, we're going to focus on making an old school hyper roller coaster. Excuse me if I still sound a little bit of like I have a cold. I do. Still there. It's not going away anytime soon, so I figured I'm just going to record. Now, what is very iconic with a hypercoaster is, of course, the support structure. Because these old school aerodynamics hypercoasters don't have very slick supports like you see on, let's say, Fury 325 or Intimidator 305 even. They have these very box-style supports made from metal girders, as opposed to these very sleek, simple supports that you see on more modern hypercoasters or giga coasters. So I'm trying to replicate that with JCat Steelworks, where I'm just making these box supports. And I think it actually looks quite well. It's not going to look perfect because I don't think they're this intricate when it comes to real life, but it does resemble the real life thing quite well. But that's just my personal opinion. You guys can let me know what you think about them in the comment section. Now, one thing that's a bit unfortunate is that it does take a lot of time. So with the pre-saved design feature in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, I'm actually able to save a lot of time when it comes to making these. So I just spam them over and over again. But it does mean that for every single bump or every single elevation or change in the slope, I have to place it kind of half in between and then delete some beams and then just keep going at it. So yeah, if you compare this to the hardline or the half pipe roller coaster, this roller coaster owes me way more time, a lot more time, which is fine because I have a weak spot for these old school hyper coasters. Fun fact: I've never ever ridden a hyper coaster in my life because in the Netherlands where I live we don't have hyper coasters. I think the closest one we have that's like an old school aero hyper coaster is the big one in Blackpool Pleasure Beach, but I've never been to the UK. So yeah, I've never ridden one, and I would absolutely love it. I've talked about this before, but it's on my bucket list to one day go to Cedar Point and ride all these gigantic roller coasters. Millennium Force is still one of my favorite roller coasters ever. I understand that there's better, more exciting roller coasters out there, but there's just something about that roller coaster that's just awesome. That giant drop right next to the Lake Erie, I believe it's called. Someone can correct me, but it's just awesome. So many things still on the bucket list, but maybe one day I'll be able to go there. Of course, life is now very different for me. I'm in my mid-30s. I have a kid, a wife. I have many responsibilities, so not as much time anymore or freedom as I had when I was originally playing this game, like in 2007, 2008, when I was 17, 18 years old. Big difference. Anyway, back to the design. So as you can see, I'm just finishing up these box support designs. And another thing that's iconic for these aero hyper coasters is that for the lower section of the track, they tend to use these simple beam support. So I'm just going to use that. So I'm going to use a few pre-made designs here and there. So for this part of the track or the roller coaster where I'm going to use these beam supports, it's not going to be much work because a lot of it's already been covered by these box supports, these old school box supports. So I'm just going to make sure that everything is kind of connected with these connector pieces. Then we can focus on the lift hill, which I'm going to use the catwalks from ATH Catwalk. It's a very nice add-on or mod. I always use that. It makes the roller coaster look so much better. And yeah, that drop looks awesome. I'm going to use some catwalks for the brake run as well. And I'm going to use some side supports as well to support these, support the beams a bit more. So for hard, I'm going to go over the roller coaster and place all the footers to make sure that all these beams have footers, of course. Makes sense. I'm going to remove this one. This is my pre-made design. We don't need this anymore. So I'm going to get rid of that. So yeah, that's most of the roller coaster done. I'm just going to go over the roller coaster one more time to delete any beams that are sticking out. And now for this roller coaster, I decided to make a path and some rides alongside the roller coaster, because this one is so big. I didn't want to have just forest or just grass next to it. I did want to have some extra features next to this one. So I'm using Beastie's path covers to make these nice swoopy paths, if you will, some nice smooth curves. And I'm going to, the path is basically going to go under the roller coaster a couple of times, which I think would be really cool. Like, imagine if you're walking there as a guest and you look up and you see this big roller coaster, and you're going underneath and this and that. So I want to kind of add to that that experience, if you will. So we're just going to make a path all around the roller coaster, which also will look really cool if you're riding it. You can see the guests, especially on that first drop. It should look really epic when you're about to drop down and you see the guests that are way down below and they look like ants. So I think that will look pretty awesome. So I'm going to spam some pre-made roller coasters I've made before, including this junior roller coaster. I'm strategically placing it right next to the drop. So when you're going down from the first drop, you can compare how high up you are to a junior coaster and see, oh my god, this difference is insane. So all about the experience, basically. So I'm going to add a flat right here, an Elarion, which is kind of my go-to. I like that. I'm going to add a chair swing here. I'm not going to go nuts with theming because, again, this is a coaster challenge. I'm not looking to make a super detailed park. But yeah, I just want it to look decent. While you're riding this roller coaster, you'll see some flat rides, you'll see some guests, you'll see some other roller coasters, whatever. So yeah, I'm going to add a little bit of foliage here. And then here I wanted to add a wooden roller coaster. Again, very simple. It's a wood chip, which is a pre-made design from RCT3. I'm going to add a simple station. Nothing fancy, but just that it looks decent and kind of realistic, if you will. I'm going to add my typical station design, if you will. Very simple. And I'm also going to add a corkscrew roller coaster right here to kind of fill up the dead space, if you will. One of my favorite, very nice, and a design I really like. It's very simple but very effective. And I'm going to make a lake as well. I also thought about making a lake that kind of surrounds the roller coaster, if you will. And then last but not least, we're going to add some foliage because, of course, we have a nice ride, we have a nice park, we got some flat rides and roller coasters, and of course, it can't just be surrounded by just a plain field of grass, if you will. We gotta, of course, add some trees, which is exactly what we're doing. So we're just going to fill it up, and yeah, the foliage is very simple, but it adds just so much, more detail and just, better atmosphere to your park. Going to add one final spiral slide here in between this kind of section, in between the roller coaster. I think it looks really cool. And then we're going to use BT's Path Mod to finish it up. And yeah, we can move on to the station. Of course, the queue right here that goes under the track. And then we have my typical go-to station design, which uses Mobi's, Vodens, girders, and glass. I think it looks quite well. It actually matches the hypercoaster theming quite well. Kind of this like retro, kind of, futuristic look, retro-futuristic look. I don't know if it makes any sense, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the hypercoaster. Again, this footage was sped up a lot more, and this coaster owes me a lot of time compared to the other roller coasters, but just look at the result. I mean, I'm very, very, just really happy with how it turned out. It really looks like a proper, old-school hypercoaster, It's got all the, it ticks all the boxes, You got really cool big drop, you got those classic supports, you got a momentum-killing mid-course brake run. Simple design in terms of like corners or whatever, because it's a primitive track design. So I don't know. I'm really happy with it. I'm happy I put a little bit of time into adding some flat rides and some roller coaster next to it, because it's such a big design. You don't want just trees and everything. You want there to be a little bit more. So I also like the color scheme. You know, the yellow track with white supports, I think looks quite well actually. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the hypercoaster. I'm really happy with it. I'm imagining if you would ride it, it's going to look awesome, which is of course what we're going to do right now. Let's go ahead and give this a go in terms of the POV, because I'm actually very curious about that drop as well. So without further ado, let's check this out. You can see that corkscrew roller coaster in the background. So cool. So cool. Alright, here we go. And just like your old school aerodynamics roller coaster, it's got a very slow lift hill. So it's going to take a while. You can reconsider your life choices as you get on this ride with that big ass drop. Really cool. As we're getting closer and closer to our impending doom, if you will. And I'm really curious about the view here. It's going to look awesome as you look down to the other rides and everything. Alright, here we are, almost at the top. Yes, here we go. Oh, that's a nice view. That's a big drop. Oh, that's a good amount of speed right there into our first kind of airtime hill. We turn around. Another little bit of airtime hill into an overbank turn. And then into our mid-course brake run. And then we drop down. But with the path next to us, really cool. We'll go through the structure. We go into this 270-degree turn. Photo section. And then some final airtime hills or bunny hops, whatever you want to call them. Into a few quick bank turns. And then into the brake run. Very nice. I think it's actually really cool. I think it's very, very fitting to an old school aero hyper roller coaster. So, yeah, I think I really did this coaster justice. I really think it looks nice. Hope you guys liked it too. I'll be back very soon with another episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching this video. And have yourself a wonderful day.